Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for coming. And for those of you who are joining us online, please feel free to post comments throughout the event. And now, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the arrival of the official party and playing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, if you could please remain standing. Lieutenant Colonel McClernon would like to observe a moment of silence for those military friends who are no longer with us today. Cadet Damian Martins. Cadet Dennis Rando. Lieutenant Matt Patrick. Major David Broder. Lieutenant Colonel John Michelizzi. Dr. Jeff Jackson. Lieutenant Colonel Camilo Guerrero. Mr. Ralph Hartman. Colonel Eric Gilbert. Lieutenant Colonel Michael Morales. Here's a toast. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you for joining us. I am Maj Aaron Celaya, and I will be your narrator for today's event. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you to the promotion ceremony for Lieutenant Colonel Chris McClernon as he is promoted to the rank of Colonel. The presiding officer for today's promotion ceremony is Brigadier General retired Gary Packard, previous department head and permanent professor, Department of Behavioral Sciences and Leadership, and associate dean for curriculum and strategy, United States Air Force Academy, Colorado. Joining us today is Lieutenant Colonel McClernon's family, his wife, Stephanie, and their children, Jackson and Dean. And we would also like to give a special welcome to the following distinguished guests: the Superintendent of the United States Air Force Academy, Lieutenant General J. Silveria. The Vice Superintendent of the United States Air Force Academy, Brigadier General Select Houston Cantwell. The Director of Staff, Headquarters, United States Air Force Academy, Colonel Retired Gail Colvin. And the Dean of the United States Air Force Academy, Brigadier General Linnell Latendra. and the Dean of Faculty, Superintendent, Chief Master Sergeant Sean Milligan. Due to the current circumstances, we apologize that not all of Lieutenant Colonel McClernand's friends and family could attend today's ceremony in person. Thank you to all of you joining us online. General Packard, will you please come forward for your comments?
I feel like I'll keep my 6 feet from Aaron back here. How about that? Can you hear me now? Perfect. Let's do it this way, because I want those guests online to be able to hear what we're talking about. And I know you can't be here in person, but we're going to try and make this as in person as we can make it, given that it's going to be two-dimensional, not three-dimensional space that you're spending time with us today. So first, let me start by welcoming a few people. Stephanie, Jack, and Dean, it's so good to see all of you. You know, I knew Chris and Stephanie before there was a Jack and a Dean. So watching the two boys grow up over the years has just been a really treat for me, as our paths have crossed multiple times since they were born in Monterey a few years ago. So that's really cool. Joan Severi, so good to see you. I've seen you virtually online as well, but not in person a long time. Same with the Dean and Chief. Good to see all of you this morning. Houston, congratulations on your selection, and good to see you, and Dan and Gail as well, and a lot of good friends and some family that are here today. You know, Chris and I have known each other officially since 2004. And that's when he first came to the Air Force Academy as Captain Chris McClernon, and I was already then Colonel Packard and knew him as Colonel Packard for many, many years until I retired. But we connected on something in putting this program together that we didn't realize, and it's worth talking about. I think it's really moving what Chris did up front in terms of listing the names of a lot of colleagues that he and I both know, and some that I didn't, that have gone before us. But there was one name on there that we both knew and we didn't know that. And that was Damian Martins, the first one that you heard on there. Cadet Damian Martin was my sponsor cadet for 2 years before I left the academy to go for my PhD. Damian was in Chris's squadron, and Damian's on that list because he passed away from cancer when he was still a cadet. I didn't know about his passing until after the fact because I had left, but Chris and I had not connected that dot. And so even though we have known each other since 2004, we're really connected back to about 1994, about 10 years before that, through Damian and that relationship we had. And that's the story, right? We're here to tell. When we do promotions, when we do these kinds of things, we tell the story. And often we don't know where their stories intersect. But one thing we do know, we're never more than one or two people apart from all being connected in our Air Force. And I don't know anybody that's more connected than soon-to-be Colonel Chris McClernon. He is a networker. He is a compassionate leader. He is someone you can't help spending time with and having a relationship with him before you even realize that relationship has already started. That's the kind of guy that Chris is. And that's the story that I want to tell about Chris. General Welsh, our Chief of Staff, back in 2013, I talked about this actually in an IFC seminar we just did. Y'all have to watch that eventually. We get that out to you. But and talking about diversity. And the reason he did that in this every airman has a story idea is to make the point that we all come from our own diverse backgrounds. We all come from our own niches. We all have our own trials and tribulations and ups and downs in life, but we are all equally important to the mission, and that's the point of General Welch's mission there when he put that out in 2013, is that no matter your background, no matter your history, whether you're active duty, family, civilian, we all have a story, and those stories all weave together to make the mission of our Air Force happen. And that's why these promotion ceremonies are important, because it reminds us of our stories, and it helps us to remember where we were in our promotions. It helps us to remember the people in our lives that made a difference as we were promoted, because we think about those things. Whenever I go to promotion ceremonies, our promotion ceremonies kind of come back and flood us sometimes, and we think about those. Or we think about, well, what am I going to do the next time? All with that hopeful, it's going to happen the next time for all of us. So I'm going to tell Chris's story. I can't tell all of Chris's story, or I would have you here until sometime tomorrow morning, more than likely. So I'm going to do it in 3 ways. I'm going to play Simon Sinek for a little bit here. I'm going to do a why, a how, and a what. A lot of times when we do promotions, we start with what. What did you do? I'm going to finish with what. That's important, but it's not the most important thing. The most important thing is, why are we sitting here with Chris today and with his family online to promote him? And I think that's really important. And so I sat and I thought about, what is it about Chris that I would say is his why? And there was one word that popped into mind instantaneously, and that was love. The word love. That was the first thing that came to my mind. Now, not necessarily a normal thing when you think about a person's military career, but it's an incredibly important thing as part of our career. We have a love for our airmen that goes beyond explanation often. And Chris exemplifies that. Where's his first love? I mean, it started with his parents. I've met his parents. I'm sorry they can't be here. They were at the last time we did this up on an overlook. You saw the picture of the promotion. I did that promotion for, you stay around long enough, you get to promote people more than once. I did that promotion with Chris. And that was one of the coolest. Jack and Dean's Cub Scout troops are out there doing the color guard. It was an awesome event. We did it at sunrise, so we weren't there at the end of the day. It was just incredible. Up until this one with a mask on, it was like my most memorable promotion ever, I think. This one might surpass that, I'm not sure, because I can't even see all of your faces right now. And half of you, I don't even know who's out there watching, so this is just weird. There's no other way to put it, but you got a great family. As my mom used to like to say, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. So I can see why Chris turned out the way he did. You all did speaking to the family online, you did a great job bringing him to us, and we're grateful for that. You know, there's 3 people in here he loves more than all of us, and it's rightly so, and these 3 people sitting right up here. That's so clear. You know, Chris has his own YouTube channel, if you don't know that. If you haven't figured it out, go look at it, but only if you like family, flying airplanes, and camping, because I think those are the only 3 kinds of videos I ever see posted out there, but there's a lot of them, and they're really well done. You should be a YouTuber when you retire or something, I don't know, but it's good stuff. There's lots of family videos out there, and a lot of flying videos, and some of them with family and flying combined, which we'll talk about one of those here in a little bit. He loves his Air Force, absolutely loves his Air Force, and more specifically, he loves this place. He lives and breathes blue, and not just Air Force blue, but Air Force Academy blue. And that's clear. He and I have traveled a lot together, doing business related to research and other things at the Academy over the years, and I've had a lot of time to sit with him at a pub at the end of the day, and it's the real deal. This is not anything other than the real deal with Chris McClernon. He loves this place with all his heart, and I know that to be true. But I'm not sure he loves it as much as flying. He has his own airplane, if you didn't know that he built. Dean, I know a video of Dean sitting in there, you know, he's doing a STEM series on this airplane, trying to teach young people about flying and aviation, which is really cool for our Air Force. But he absolutely loves flying. And for a guy who doesn't wear wings on his Air Force uniform, I don't know many people more passionate about getting in the air and flying an airplane than Chris McClernon. So love, I think, really identifies him. What else identifies him? I'm not going to talk about these others long, but I think they're there. Patriotism is clearly there. I bought a Jeep a few years ago. Joe Severi has a Jeep. McClernon has a Jeep. I just had to join the fray, I guess. But first thing Chris did is he showed me his orange Jeep and said, "You need these," and he pointed to the 2 American flags that sat on the left and right side of his Jeep, and those are the first things I put on my car, for good reason. So he loves his country. I know that for a fact. You know, and the other thing I think that really is the why for Chris, and I've seen this as we've had talks about, do I stay in, do I don't stay in? You stay with somebody long enough, you know, you have these conversations with your people. It's his integrity. He knew he had more to serve and more to give. And things didn't always turn out the way he had hoped, but he didn't give up hope. And he kept serving, and he kept serving, and he kept serving, and he's got a lot more serving to do. So I'm very happy for this promotion. So that's the why. That's, I think, why we're here today. The how. So how did Chris get here? So I'm going to do his career in a 4-3-2-1 format. So this is going to be really quick. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. You can read his bio. You can talk to him from 6 feet apart afterwards if you want any details on any of these spots. 4. What's the 4? It's 4 rotations to USAFA. He came here to the prep school to start with, stayed here 5 years, graduated in the class of 1999. He came back as an instructor in 2004. Watch it, Hans. Yeah. Came back in 2004, served as an instructor in my department, served as my executive officer, did an outstanding job. We knew we had to get him off to school, so we sent him off to school. He did a few more things for the Air Force. We got him back again. I don't remember what year that was, 2015-ish, maybe before that. Yeah, around there. Yeah, right around there. We got him back from AFRL, and he stayed, and then we sent him on a hardship tour to London to go spend some time working in London, and had a real big impact, and the family had a great time spending some time overseas. And then he came back for the Soups CAG, spent some time with General Severia in his office, and then we snatched him back to DF as our Associate Dean for Research. So 4 times he's been in and out of the Air Force Academy in his career. 3 rotations as a behavioral scientist. He started at Kirtland Air Force Base, working down there. He's one of the few people I read as SURF who is not a rated officer, and he has, I think, 39-ish hours, something like that, and a C-130J model from his time down there at test, working with the test program down at Kirtland. So he has hours actually in his SURF that he has logged in a logbook, which is pretty cool. And a better story, he loves to fly, I told you, he used to go down and teach human factors at the test pilot school, and he would fly himself down. He's the only one I've known that been able to find a way to get permission to land at test pilot school in his private airplane so he could go teach a class. I don't know of anybody else in the Air Force who has ever done that. So that tells you enough about Chris right there. We could probably just stop with that. That's kind of Chris in a nutshell. And then, of course, he did his time in Europe, in the EORD, the European Office of Research and Development, before he came to the Soups CAG. So that's the 3. 2 trips to grad school. Went to North Carolina State, the wrong school in North Carolina, but the right state, at least. I went to UNC, where he did his master's degree. And then we sent him off to Monterey, where he did his PhD at the Naval Postgraduate School there at Monterey. And the only thing I've got about Chris is when he left, I said, you've got to find a reason to invite me out to Monterey with enough time that I can bring my golf clubs, and that never happened. I'm just saying, someday you owe me that trip. We'll make that happen. Yep. And the one is simple. He's had one amazing and unique career. When you look at people's pathways, and I talk with cadets and junior officers all the time about this, there is no standard career pathway. We think there is, but there's not. But some are more unique than others, and McClernon's in that top 5 to 10% when I look at the different things he's been able to do over his career. Between spending a lot of time as a scientist, but then he was the executive officer for the AFRL commander, the CAG for the superintendent. He went and worked with the program at Guantanamo Bay. And he sought that out so that he could make a difference. That's a human factors person seeking out really something that was kind of out of his wheelhouse, but just did, as Chris always did, an amazing job in that new environment. And that's been how you've seen his career unfold. It's been different, it's been unique. I get these phone calls every now and then when we were not working together, and he would go, hey, Colonel P, what do you think about this? And I would go, well, what do you think about that? Because I knew wherever he went, he would do a great job, and the Air Force would benefit from what he did in that location. So the what? What did he do for this promotion? You know, we promote people on really 3 things, when you'll hear this in the promotion order in a minute. On integrity, right? We want to know, you know, a little bit of your character, right? That's what we're really kind of after. Your patriotism, we've already talked about that. Your commitment to the country, to the oath of office. Are you loyal? Are you someone who we can trust with a higher level of responsibility? And your abilities. And it's those abilities that we look at. We are a merit-based organization. And this is the part that would take me till tomorrow morning if I actually did it. So this was the longest part of getting ready for today, is figuring out what 3 things am I going to talk about so I'm not keeping you sitting 6 feet apart all day. So I'm going to give you 3 stories that I think identify and exemplify everything else. And one is the standing up of the Warfighter Effectiveness Research Center at DFBL. We started that with Doug Lindsay, your mast here somewhere with the Kansas City mast back over here. Doug and I worked with that early on. He was the first director we put in that. And the current director sits right in front of him, Chad Tossell. And Chris sat in between them. He came back the 3rd time to the Academy, 2nd time to DFBL, and he was the deputy director working with Dr. Lindsay. And as soon as Doug retired, I knew there was only one choice in the department that I could put in charge of this center, and that was this guy sitting over here. What did Chris do? Doug and I went to AFRL and got 150K from Mr. Blackhurst, the deputy in the 711th Human Performance Wing at the time. 75K for 2 years in a row. That's not a lot of money to do research. Doug set the foundation that allowed him, in a very quick amount of time, get us from 75K to $1.2 million in less than about 18 months of research. And I'll never forget one anecdote. I got to tell this story that I was sitting in my, we'd been working with Ben Knott at AFOSR, who had a great big research portfolio. And we had sponsored Ben to do his big program review at the Air Force Academy. Micah Inslee, the chief scientist of the Air Force, came out. General Johnson, the current superintendent, spoke. General Armacost spoke. It was a big deal held at the golf course. Ben had never done a program review anywhere other than in DC up to that point in time. We're talking, this is a $14, $15 million research portfolio that he's managing. At the end of that portfolio, at the program review, he found that several of his research partners were underperforming, and so he was going to terminate their grant. So he calls up Chris and he says, can you spend $400,000 if I give it to you? And Chris comes up to my office and says, Colonel P, because that's what he always said. He said, can we spend $400,000 if Ben gives it to us? And I said, yes, go down and tell him yes, and then come back up here and tell me how the heck we're going to make that happen. And that's what we did. And that's how we went from 150K to over 1.2 million. We had to get creative but legal. We had to really figure out where do we dot the I's and cross the T's to be able to accept this money, because Ben had to move it or it was going to expire. But we moved it into a contract vehicle, which could last for 2 years, and that gave us the wiggle room we needed to actually execute on it and do the work we needed to do that set up what now Chad's doing in DFBL. So, but it wouldn't have been, without his creativity and influence, that would never have happened. And so, so that's one example of what he does. This next one is his personal one, and it's, he works with this organization called Pilots and Paws. I never knew about this organization until I met Chris. You might have never met this. If there's one YouTube video you're going to watch, you go out and watch the one that's about Pilots and Paws. And I'll give you that. This is a teaser for it, so you'll want to go watch it. This is what you read when he first starts the video. I did see it, by the way. 4 days, 5 cities, 3 dogs, 3 brothers, 4 cousins, 2 grandparents, 1 trail race, and 1 jam session. Now, if that doesn't pique your interest of how the heck do you do all that in 4 days, and it literally 5 cities, we're not talking 5 cities in Colorado. We're talking from Colorado to the East Coast and back in a private propeller-driven airplane with his brother, delivering rescue dogs, hanging out with his parents, and it does actually end with a family jam session with him on the drums. So, so go watch it. It's very moving and entertaining. No, it is one of the best band jam sessions because it's authentic. It's not necessarily the most musically capable jam session on the planet, but I've rarely seen musicians having as much fun as they were having in this jam session. It was who was on the keyboards? Your niece? Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever met her, but she was a hoot to watch on the keyboards. So, so that's the thing. But the thing I want to finish on. And it's not really something like that he's done. I want to say one other thing, and it's important to remember. He also was involved in the Veterans Airlift Command, which flies our wounded veterans from place to place, as well as Angel Flight, which also takes people in need and gets them to where they need to get for medical care. And it leads into this last point. That's why I wanted to say this, and that's compassion. If there's anything that's a hallmark when I think of Chris McClernon, it's compassion. The fact that he started the ceremony remembering those who couldn't be here is just an indicator of the heart that sits inside this man. And it's genuine, and it's true, and it's real, and we're going to both fall apart if I'm not careful here. But I've known this guy a long time, and I've never seen an inauthentic thing come out of him. It's not always a happy thing. I can share that too. But it's always authentic. And the compassion is real, the love is real, his service is real, his performance is real, and this promotion is going to be real because he's earned it. And that's why we do this. So congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, the reading of the promotion order. The President of the United States, acting upon the recommendation of the Secretary of the Air Force, has placed special trust and confidence in the patriotism, integrity, and abilities of Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Kyle McClernon. In view of these special qualities and his demonstrated potential to serve in the higher grade, Lieutenant Colonel McClernon is promoted to the grade of Colonel, United States Air Force, effective 1 July 2020, by order of the Secretary of the Air Force. Thank you, General Packard. Please be seated. At this time, we invite Stephanie, Jack, and Dean McClernon to come forward for the presentation of Lieutenant Colonel McClernon's new rank.
One of the few reasons I wanted OCPs, this is one. This shouldn't take long.
At this time, General Packard will administer the oath of office. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your full name. I, Christopher Kyle McClernon, having been appointed a colonel in the United States Air Force. Having been appointed a colonel in the United States Air Force. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely. That I take this obligation freely. Without any mental reservation or physical reservation. Without any mental reservation or physical reservation. And that I will well and faithfully. And I will well and faithfully. Discharge the duties. Discharge the duties. Of the office upon which I'm about to enter. Of the office upon which I'm about to enter. So help me God. Congratulations.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Colonel Chris McClernon. Sir, the floor is yours. Thanks.
This is all really weird, all right, and I want to speak to that a little bit. But first, thank you all for being here. Thanks for those that could make it in person. There's a lot of faces that I haven't seen in a while, faces that I have seen recently that mean a lot to me. And thanks for being here, and thanks a lot for those that are joining us online. I feel really bad, as you mentioned, sir, that my family can't be here. My family, my parents, and another reason why I wanted OCPs is I could carry a lot of handkerchiefs. And so my parents have been with us every step of the way from the very beginning. So have my siblings, Joe, Kelly, and Mike. They've been to every ceremony. They've been to all of the big events, and they're not here today, and that hurts, as well as all my in-laws. They've treated me like family, and I really appreciate that. So I'm sorry they can't join us. Thanks for all of you that are here in person and online today. Also, thanks for those that made this ceremony possible today. So there's no protocol for how to do a promotion ceremony in the middle of a pandemic. And so when you ask people, what do we do? There's people like Cody, Isaac, Andrew, Mark, Amy, Gina, that all stepped up and said, not only are we going to pull this off, it's going to be an amazing ceremony. And they also mentioned we're going to have something that you'll cherish and remember for a long time. The slideshow at the beginning, that was CM's idea, Cody and Isaac, and I really appreciate that. They said, give us your pictures. We want to do something for you to kind of kick off the event. And they sent me a first draft of that. And I was at my office at home, and I was watching it, and I thought, oh, this is really great. I said, Stephanie, come in. You've got to see this. So she's standing over my shoulder, and I play the video again. And I said, what do you think about that? That's great. Nothing. And I was like, really? And I turned around, and she's just sobbing. And she says, you've had an amazing career. This has been such a great journey. And so thank you, Isaac, for putting that together. It means a lot to me that you guys did that. So I've had a few friends approach me since the Colonel's List came out a few months ago and said, so how's it feel to be a Colonel Select? And I really struggled with that question, and I've had a lot of time to think about it. And it's weird to me because I've been coming to work for 21 years, and I've just been coming in, doing the job, accomplishing the mission, but I've been laughing and having fun the entire time. And so I've been struggling with this ceremony today because I feel like I've just been enjoying 21 years, working with a lot of people. Some of you are here in the room, some of you are online. And so I've had some time to reflect about what's this ceremony about. And as much as I appreciate your words, General Packard, and thank you, that really does mean a lot to me. This ceremony today is not about me. I've had a lot of time to think about what is this ceremony about, and there's a list of people that I want to tell you about. And that's my immediate supervisors. These are the people that when I was at work and I was just accomplishing the mission, they were behind the scenes, they were behind the curtain, challenging me, giving us challenges as a family, but giving us resources so that we can accomplish those challenges. And then when I didn't mess up too bad, rewarding us. And then I think most importantly, also looking out for the next big thing, right? The next big assignment, the next big duty that would be really great for myself professionally, for us personally as a family. And those are the people that I really want to recognize today because I feel like none of us would be here today in this room if it wasn't for this list of people. So I brought all their names, and I'm going to name each one of them. And I hope if you're online, comment, talk about them. If you hear a name you recognize, give a shout out. If you're here in the room and you see someone afterwards today, thank them for their service. Thank them for investing in me, putting all the knowledge and leadership skills that they had, investing that in me so that I was a better leader and I was a better officer, and that's what brought us together today. So I'm going to read their names, and I'll chuckle because each one of these names is a year or two or three of really fond memories of laughter and fun and having a great time. And it starts with Lieutenant Colonel Dale Criswell, Major David Hardy, Lieutenant Colonel Terrence Andre, General Packard, Dr. Nita Shattuck, Dr. Mike McCauley, Dr. Army Colonel Retired Larry Shattuck, Mr. Bill Russell, General Ellen Palakowski. She was really, many months ago, she said, I'm there. Let me know when the ceremony is and I'll be there. And this happened, and General Palakowski's not here, but I know she's online, and thank you for joining us, ma'am. I really appreciate it. I enjoy our chats recently. Colonel Bill Mueller, Lieutenant Colonel Doug Lindsay, Colonel Tim Lawrence, the deans at the Air Force Academy, General Andy Armacost and General Linnell Latundra. I never worked directly, as they were never my supervisors, but these two individuals really, if you want to talk about people that are responsible for why we're here today, they were always looking out for my career, thinking about where's the next move for McClernon, where does he go? These amazing opportunities that you mentioned, sir, they're the ones that were setting those up. And ma'am, thank you so much for believing in me. Thank you for when getting selected, you fought to keep me here, and I look forward to working for you and serving you as long as you'll let me. General Severia, I have to tell a story about General Severia really quick because I was in London, and I was, Stephanie can tell you this is truth. I woke up one morning, I was having my morning coffee, and I opened up Facebook. And it was at the time in London we didn't know what we were going to do next. Had no idea. General Packard agreed to send, General Armacost agreed to send us over to London. Who knew what would happen after? We didn't know if we'd retire. We didn't know what would come next. And I opened Facebook one morning, and there's a man I've never seen before in uniform on the top of the staff tower telling 4,000 cadets, if you can't treat each other with dignity and respect, then get out. And I said at that moment, in my apartment in London, drinking coffee, I said, that's the man I need to work for. That's who I need to watch and observe and learn from. And I sent the note to a few folks, including you, sir, eventually you, sir, and I don't know why, but you said I could come work for you. And next thing you know, we had a great year together. And it was so fun working for you, sir, and I appreciate all the lessons that you taught me. And thanks for being here today. It means a lot. I really appreciate it. And Colonel Dan Uribe is a classic example of, I've worked for you for 1 month, And in 1 month, he's already calling me saying, let me tell you about this, let me teach you about that, let me mentor you on things. You're going to be a colonel, let me teach you a little bit about that. And thank you so much, sir. I appreciate it. In 1 month, we've already had really meaningful conversations about what it means to be a leader and to be an officer. So thank you, sir. I appreciate that. That's the list of all the supervisors I've had in 21 years. And like I said, they challenged me. They've taught me, and I, as much as it hurts to say this, I really sincerely mean they all believed more in me than I believe in myself, and they're the reason that we're here today. But most of all, they cared about me, and they cared about my family, like they were family. And so there's one name on that list I didn't mention, and I want to tell you a story about Lieutenant Colonel Pete Puhek. And Pete Puhek is here today. I haven't seen you in a long time. It means a lot to me that you're here. I really appreciate it. And I hope I don't embarrass you telling you this story. He has no idea what's coming right now. But this story is about the greatest day of my life. And it was 20 years ago. We're going to need some tissues here. 20 years ago, I was in Albuquerque working at the Air Force Operational Testing Evaluation Center, and Pete Puhek was my supervisor. I was a second lieutenant. And I was going all over the country testing aircraft and testing other aircraft systems and having a great time. Coming to work, laughing, enjoying every bit of it. And I met Stephanie in downtown Albuquerque, and we fell in love really quick, and we dated for a year. And I remember when I met Stephanie, I went to Pete Puhek, and I said, I met this great girl. And his eyes and his face just lit up. He was so happy for me, like a family member, and he said, that's great. Tell me all about her. And after every weekend, how'd the weekend go? What'd you and Stephanie do? Always there, wondering about me personally, as a person, how was I doing and how was Stephanie doing? So it was no surprise that after we dated for 1 year, I went into Lieutenant Colonel Pete Puhek's office, and I hope you both call me out. Stephanie and Pete Puhek, you let everyone here know if any of this is not true. I went into Pete Puhek's office, and I said, sir, again, I'm still a second lieutenant, sir, I'm going to ask Stephanie to marry me. And he dropped everything he was doing and said, great, that's awesome. How are you going to do it? So I told him the whole story. I said, I got it all planned out. I'm going to drive up to the top of Sandia Peak, where there's a restaurant. And I've already arranged with the restaurant there. They're going to scoot aside a table for two. They're going to reserve it just for us. And I'm going to set the table ahead of time, and then I'm going to go pick up Stephanie. We're going to take the tram to the top of the Sandia Peak, and then I'm going to take her out on the mountain away from people, and I'm going to propose to her. And he said, that's so, and I said, but one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is I need to cut out just a little bit early Friday so that I can drive up Sandia Peak and fix the table. I was going to put flowers there, and then I made a leather binder. When we met, when you meet someone and you're in a relationship, the way you get to know them is, through conversation. And Stephanie was working for the Forest Service at the time. She was a dispatcher, and she was deployed out in the field fighting fires. And I was TDY more than I was at home, right? I was gone all the time. And so we met over email. And we met, and literally the next day after we met, I went TDY, and you went out and fought a forest fire. And so we met for 1 year, a lot of that over email, the questions you would normally ask your significant other. So I bound all those emails. I put them in a leather binder. I was going to set that on the table with the flowers. It was going to be really, really awesome. And I said, but here's the thing, sir. I got to cut out to go drive up there if it's okay. And he said, oh, yeah, you bet. I'll cover the office. I got you. Don't worry about a thing. I got this. He said, but here's the thing. I have an idea. Lieutenant Colonel Pete Puhek to Second Lieutenant McClernon says, I have an idea. What if I went up there also? And I hid off in the distance. You won't know I'm there. I promise. You won't see me. You won't know I'm there. But I'll take pictures of the moment that you propose to your wife, and you'll have those to cherish for the rest of your life. Do I have the story right so far, sir? Yeah. And I said, are you sure? This is Lieutenant Colonel Puhek. Are you sure? Yeah, no problem. Okay, great. So we had this whole thing worked out. I took everything up to the restaurant, set everything up, drove home, got changed, picked up Stephanie, went back, got on the tram. She has no idea what's going on, I don't think. We got to the top, and then, there's people at the restaurant, but we went for a hike down the trail to the side of the mountain. And it was a beautiful night on top of Sandia, looking out over the city of Albuquerque, the sun setting, reds, oranges, purples. We're in love. And I was like, oh, this is the perfect moment. This is how it has to happen. So I kneeled down, proposed. She said yes. We held each other, and then we sat there, and now we just talked kind of about our future. What's the rest of our life look like? We're sitting there in this beautiful, amazing, gorgeous setting. And all of a sudden, Stephanie says, "What's that?" She says, "There's something over in that bush." I think there's, and I said, no, baby. Isn't the sunset's great? Sunset's awesome. Just, let's take it in. Let's just keep it. So I actually distracted her. I think I told her it was a bird or something. And so we're sitting there again talking about our future. And then again, she says, "No, there's a guy. There's a man in that bush. There's a man watching us." And I said, the cover's blown. And then the face of Lieutenant Colonel Pete Puhek pops out of the bush. And Pete Puhek says, "Hey, guys." And I said, "Hey, sir," and she smiles. And so, I wasn't sure if you guys would believe that story, even though Stephanie and Pete Puhek are here. So I actually got the picture. So, Amy, so that's it. That's on the top of Sandia Peak. There I am getting ready to propose to Stephanie. See how beautiful it is and how nice it is? See how it's just us? Isn't that nice? And the next picture, "Hey, sir." I wanted to share that story with you. That story's not about me. That story's not about our relationship. And that story's not about Pete Puhek, believe it or not. That story is a very early example of the hundreds and hundreds of things that my supervisors and the people I've worked with have done for me. They've treated us like family. They really, truly cared for us. They took care of us. They cared about our future. They now care about our kids. And that's why we're here today. We're here today because this group of people invested in me, cared about me, and made sure that we were taken care of. So, again, if you see one of these people that I named, thank them. If you're online, give them a shout out. I would really appreciate. They're like family to me, and that's what we're celebrating today. And I was hoping that Lieutenant Garrett Watts, my second lieutenant, he's been my lieutenant for the last year, and I was hoping that he'd be here today because I wanted to tell him, I hope you see a little bit of Pete Puhek in me. And that's what the Air Force is all about. All of these people for 21 years have taught me how to be a leader, how to be a dad, how to be an officer, how to be a good friend. And I hope that Garrett sees that, and I hope a lot of my DFRO team is here today. I hope you all see just a little bit of Pete Puhek in me, and I hope that makes a difference to you and all the people that I've had the fortune of working for. So that's what we're here to celebrate today. And so speaking of celebrations, I don't think it's right just yet that we all get together and have a big party and hug each other, and that's sad. That makes me really disappointed. But here's what I'm going to do for everyone. If you're watching online or you're present today, Tuesday, 30 June, from 5 to 7, I'm going to open up a tab at my favorite brewery, which is the Pikes Peak Brew Co., and up in Monument. You can go there, give them my name, and they'll give you a six-pack of your choice. Take it home, have a beer, and know that we're also at home that night having a beer, thinking of all of you and the impact that you all have had on us. And we just one six-pack, please. I've already arranged that if someone comes in and says, McClernon said we could have a keg of Elephant IPA, that's a no-go. It's a six-pack. And then we will have a party when the time is right. We can promise you that. And we look forward to celebrating with all of you in person the right way with lots of hugs and handshakes and high fives. So that's all I have. Thanks a lot for coming today. I really appreciate it. And thanks a lot for all of you being a part of our family and part of our career.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you could remain standing for the playing of the Air Force song. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's ceremony. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.